And now, as much as we're like, AI is going to kill everybody, I actually think that AI offers us an opportunity to become human again.
Welcome to the Stay at Work Home. We are here to question the prevailing assumptions about the meaning of life, work, and the purpose of people. Instead of being torn apart by our vocations, we want to be pulled together. Come along with us as we change our picture of the good life and pursue the home as God intended, one that worships through work together. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stay at Work Home. Once again, we have my good friend Eric J. Roman, who is a entrepreneurial dentist, business coach, builder of all kinds of things and family systems and business systems, and just generally awesome. Eric, it's good to see you again.
It's great to be back hanging out with you, Keith. Brings me a lot of joy to be here with you, my man.
That's awesome. It brings me joy to have
Yeah.
you here. Because if it was just me, I wouldn't bring me joy, but you do.
You could start doing the solo podcast. You could start being the guy that does that. Just putting it on the table.
Probably not going to happen.
Okay, cool.
So you said something in part one, some little bit of time before we were so terribly cut short by my power going out for hours, which is weird.
It's just a thing.
No apparent reason. And it was that you think that the technology, but technology writ large maybe, that has brought about so many quandaries for us. Obviously, it's helped us a lot, but it's put us in all kinds of social, familial predicaments of various kinds. You think it ultimately pulls us out of the hole it put us in. And I was like, well, that's deep. We need to go deeper on that. So let's I'm knocking everything around. Sorry. Let's talk about it. What in the world do you mean?
Well, how about you start with the problem? Do you want to start with give me some assessment of where you think that we're wrong or going south?
Yeah. Okay. So we've got all kinds of information, potential information. And because we are anxious beings, we foresee problems that we wish to forestall, if I'm using that word correctly. We want to fix the problem before it happens. We want to plan for the future. And we have now a virtually unlimited, we have virtually unlimited access to things that would ostensibly help us plan for the future, more than we can possibly process and execute upon. I would say that's my biggest. And then there's this whole I'm just going to be entertained by it, and I've got access to it, and I can continue to go and get the dopamine hit. For me, it's not that. I don't scroll. I do other things I plan. I come up with ideas and try to figure out what's going to go wrong and how I can mitigate it, and will it work? Will it not work? Yada yada. I'm sure the same things that you've done before.
Yep. Yeah. No, I get it. So what I hear you saying, Keith, is the fear of, it seems like we are in a bad spot societally as humans, with the amount of our attention that's now invested in let's call it digital architecture. And even the people that are most invested in digital architecture hate it. And we all have read the data about all the people that invent the digital architecture that don't allow their kids to go to schools with computers, right? We've all read the data about how the people that have conceived of this and that are profiting from it actually have proven through their behaviors that they know exactly how dangerous it is. And so it's yeah, I created it and it's putting billions of dollars in my bank account, but I don't let my family use it. It's just for your family, not for mine, right? Is that a little bit of kind of maybe what you're suggesting? And it seems like things are going to get worse before they get better, right?
It does. And socially, it's hyper connected, hyper disconnected, right?
Yeah.
So this idea that being connected non-bodily doesn't work for bodily creatures,
right?
But it does give you hits of
actually that's
dopamine.
cornerstone behind bullying. The massive rise in bullying was directly correlated in a number of massive research studies to it became digital, because when you don't have to see the look on the face or the pain that's caused to the person, it dehumanizes the experience of being a bully. So it was really easy. I mean, and when you take that and you multiply it times 1 billion people on social media, There you go. Like we're all political bullies now. And then which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Because then there's additional research, which is like, well, once we start behaving that way digitally, then we start carrying that behavior slowly. First, we behave that way digitally behind closed doors in the closet. We're closet bullies, right?
Man.
We're closet bullies first. And then we're like, well, that turd said something that I've been trained to disagree with. I might try being a in-person bully a little bit now and see how it goes. And guess what? Half of the room, because of the nature of where we are, half the room is like, yeah, you go be in and out of the closet bully. And now here we are,
Look,
right?
Eric
Like
owns so and so.
Yeah. And I'm going to put it on social media. Eric Roman is a champion of hate, right? Like, yeah. And so here we are societally. Listen, first, if you haven't read it, go pick up The Anxious Generation.
Mhm.
It's an awesome book. And essentially, like they've taken it's I love it when nerds get into research and they share what we at least think we know. Because, and by the way,
Yeah.
like this whole conversation is speculative. I'm gonna paint a picture that is better than the one that I think a picture that had to be kind of painted for me through a lot of thought and study, that is better than the one that says doom and gloom. Because the truth is, if we look back historically, let's look back hundreds of years, let's look back thousands of years at major points of inflection with technological shift. There were good things, there were bad things, right? Hey, like nuclear energy, amen. It may be the future for us again. Came from a nuclear bomb, right? We built the bomb first, then we harnessed it for nuclear energy, right? Like the new incredible technologies always have this, uh, the gun, right? The modern rifle, right? Like hunting would never be the same, right? And yet now then we also use this to fight wars, so there's actually, you remember, do you remember like the origin? Are you still there, Keith?
I am. It's telling me
Oh,
I'm
you're still there.
unstable. I still see you fine.
Okay, good. You're good.
Yep.
The origin of the Nobel Prize, what was it? It was TNT, right? Like TNT, because of what it meant, but it became like this thing that the inventor considered, this might have been like, I almost wish I hadn't done it because of
Yeah.
what it meant for explosive devices and bombs from that point onward. So there's always good and there's always bad. Right now, it's really easy for us to see the bad. Getting back to the anxious generation, what we're talking about, or what they're talking about inside the book is, we don't have data to say what's getting ready to happen. So it is what it is. We're in our first situation like this. We've never seen a generation of youth have this like growing up with social media. So there's no precedent. There's not like, oh, this is just like when the printing press came out. All the kid, not no precedent, no comparative analysis, none of the above. We just have to go with what we have right now. And so all that we have is our early extrapolations from the data, right? And to your point, Keith, there are some things that are certainly not good. But what are the other things that they talk about in like all the data? Teenage sex is at a historical all-time low. Teenage alcoholism is at a historical all-time low. Teenage tobacco use, all-time low. So our kids, like the vices of our childhood, right? Like, don't get anybody pregnant, don't get hooked on drugs, don't like the vices of our childhood are like solved. We just have a new vice. We have a new problem.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be our starting point. Like here we are. We don't know what's happening. And I would acknowledge the thing I love most about the anxious generation is that it spends the last chapter saying, listen, based on where we are with the data, here's our recommendations for what to do with your kids right now. Plain and simple. Like just try this. It's not going to hurt anybody theoretically. So,
Yeah.
um, but let's sit there and say, okay, so what else has happened? We see our artificial intelligence is like, it's really good. And we
Mhm.
know, I mean, and they're even talking about like, the laws for advancement, artificial intelligence like has the ability to take the hockey stick and like make it go vertical, like just straight up.
Mhm.
The speed that our technology can move and iterate and change, it's like we as humans in some ways can't even keep up with now the pace that our technology can autonomously like develop, right? And learn.
Mm. Mhm.
And so like, oh no, like here we are. But I'm going to throw you a couple of bones here. The
Give me
first
something
thing,
happy.
I'm going to throw you something happy, right? Like when we look at the we'll call it Chat GPT, right? The GPT, the language model, right? The
Mhm.
massive language model that we're now all interacting with in some way, shape, or form. I mean, my kids, my 11-year-old is like having conversations with Chat GPT. Like this is
Yeah.
normal. Like that was fast. And so the language model. Think about that for a moment. The ideal purpose for the advancement of the language model is Jarvis from Iron Man. It is the ideal interface between humans and machine,
We can
right?
actually
Because
talk to it.
that's it.
Yeah.
And so what is our interface now, Keith? How do we interface with our machines?
Digitally.
Through what?
Keyboards,
And
screens, tapping buttons.
screens and keyboards and capture buttons, right? So if you really think about the GPT as it advances, the GPT is the ideal next interface between humans and machines,
'Cause we
which
can just
means
talk to
that
it
think
and
about
be
this.
present.
Yes. Not only can we just talk to it, but it's always listening. For better or for worse, it's always listening. And it's adaptively knowing. I'm actually working on this with companies in the dental industry right now. You walk into an operatory, you just wear the little lapel tool on here. You have your conversation, and it hasn't just turned everything into an ideal form of notes and documentation. It's actually thinking on your behalf. It's saying, "Hey Eric, did you verify the adjacent tooth?" There's like a 36.9% chance that there could be something going on there based on the symptoms that came up in conversation because it knows. And because it's not biased, like, well, I take that back, because it's biased in a different way than we are as humans. We're all biased, right? It's biased by its data set, but it's biasing with data. We're biasing with human experience, which like ain't real good. So the point being, here we are now with this new interface between human and device. Do you understand this is why Meta, Google, an app, everybody is investing in it that has a traditional Bing, like Microsoft? Right now, think about their primary revenue generation. It's visual ad revenue, right? So you go on Google or on the internet and they're pelting you trying to pop up ads, pop up ads, pop up ads. They don't do pop up ads because they don't generate revenue. They make money on those. And so all these people are spending money with a shotgun effect. They're like, I don't care if you don't want this. I'm going to hit you with it so many times. I'm going to make you want it. I'm going to make you want what I have. I'm going to annoy you until you die. Right. And so they annoy us with all these advertisements. They pepper us with all these things in hopes it's like they're fishing, right? What happens when we're not looking at screen devices anymore? They're no longer fishing, Keith. They're no longer they have their entire revenue model is gone. It's disappeared, right? That's the same for social media, right? Remember, in social media, if you're not paying for it, it's because you're the product. You're the product that people are paying for because they're giving you for every two or three things there's another ad, right? There's another ad that comes in there that pops up that makes you want something, and the algorithms are amazing until there's no algorithm, until there's no viewer, because I don't have a screen device anymore. I just interact with my lapel, like, and it's listening to my conversations. It's saying, "Hey, Eric, we went ahead and set up another appointment for you and Keith to chat in 2 weeks. Is that okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great." And so that's where we're already going really fast, Keith. And so look at what that means, right? Like, look at what that means for where our kids are right now. In other words, our kids, we're thinking, we always said our kids were the first generation to natively grow up with screen devices, right? That was true. But what we actually might be saying is that our kids are the only generation that grew up with native screen devices, because that's how fast stuff has moved. I really do think, I mean, the devices are already showing up. I really think we're a couple of years away from, like, I won't even carry a screen device anymore. That just seems superfluous, right? Like, I don't need to carry around entertainment anymore, which I'll pause for conversation, because our next conversation is going to be, like, I'll call it the evolution of humanity. So, do you want to pause and talk on this?
The concept of doing that all through voice sounds good. I'm thinking in more of like a
Mm-hmm.
data set kind of way. Like if when I want to analyze the data, I need a spreadsheet, but I'm not doing
Mm-hmm.
that on an iPhone anyway.
You already, and again, like, no, what you actually need is, you need to know what the data says. See, you've been trained to think that the only way to analyze the data is to look at the spreadsheet. That's your training,
But I
because
don't.
you think that's the case. But you don't. We're already doing that. We're handing data to just chat GPT and GPT models, and we're saying, listen, would you look this over and tell me what things I should be actioning? This is already happening. Like, this is the evolution of where we are from a business operation perspective. You say, listen, tell me the pertinent data points that we should be focusing on. Well, it looks like your cost per new customer, or your new customer acquisition cost is increasing, right? Like, we need to action that. We need to get it back down to stable levels, because that's a primary indicator of your profitability. Oh, I didn't even know that. Okay, great. And so what you need is the conversation, not the data, the spreadsheet. Now, we'll always have quants and nerds that are looking at those things, but what we're finding is that the GPT is already picking up on things that we're not picking up on. As a matter of fact, like, when I'm looking and working with companies that are like, "Hey, we want to, like, take this into your dental industry. What would you?" I'm telling them, I'm like, "I want to know what your model can figure out that I don't currently look at." Like, I have all these biases that thinks this is important, this number's important, this number's important. I want to know, if it looked at my past 5 years of data, what it would say is important and controllable. So, yeah, you're kind of hitting it. And could we still go home and look at spreadsheets? Absolutely, bro. But why do it if we don't have to?
Hmm.
You know?
Does that get rid of the social media aspect though? Because it's only if like you let it go does that go away because you don't need it. Like I'm not doing it.
So that creates number one, why are we there now? It's dopamine, right? So this becomes a choice. And all these things are choices for us as a society, right? How are we going to get our dopamine, right? Like, where's our dopamine going to come from in the future? And because we're dopamine addicts, right? Like, we really want it. I need the hit. Like, give me the dopamine hit? And so, can we break our addiction? Like, even given another alternative, are we willing to break it? That's an interesting question. We already have people that are willing to break it, that put their phones in boxes when they come home because they don't want that temptation and all the other stuff. So, it's an interesting question. Are we willing to break it? I don't know, to be determined. But um, when we really look from a maybe more step back meta analysis of what AI is doing in society, um, I had a really cool presentation that I received. It was years back. It was better part of a decade ago. And it was like when I didn't even know what AI stood for. And what it talked about is the effect of artificial intelligence on the workforce. And the way it really works is there's 4 quadrants of jobs, right? One, two, three, and four. The first quadrant of job is a job that AI will completely eliminate. It won't exist anymore in any way, shape, or form. Like we can think of what that's, we're seeing it happening with marketing right now, right? We're seeing companies that no longer will have people doing certain tasks because it just doesn't make sense. The second category of job is something that um, will be mostly AI that needs a little bit of a human to finish it, right? And so it's like the AI made the decision. It just needs a human to like be involved to finish what it is. Okay. Yep. Exactly right. Like, as a matter of fact, this is how Amazon already works its supply chain and its fulfillment. Amazon has the robots go around, grab everything. Amazon's only including people because it wants to, not because it has to. And so it lets the human being be the last check on those things. Hey, does this look pretty good? Okay, great. We're moving it on. But it can do it. A human now does the work of 12 because it's pulling everything together all at once. And then the human just verifies at the end of it. And so that's category two. Category three is a space where it definitely requires a human, but the human is augmented and improved by artificial intelligence. This is what we'll see in medicine. Our physicians, our dentists, they're still going to be there having interaction with you, but the artificial intelligence is going to be augmenting the diagnosis and guiding them. So it's like a it's interesting. There might even be category 2 and category 3 in healthcare, right? Like we'll see both. But that's another example of what's there. And then we have category 4. And category 4, these are the people that rule the AI. These are the people that are making the decisions at the very top, the leadership and all the other things that even though they might have some incorporation of artificial intelligence or something like that, at the end of the day, this is the people that build the companies and that do the things and that sit on top of all the stuff. It's like the pure entrepreneur portion of this, which again, even though downstream it might have AI up there at the very top, it's people sitting in a room making decisions and having ideas. So those are your 4 categories, right? The point being is that every job falls into one of those 4 categories because every job that we're going to do on this planet is going to like fit there. It's just the way that it is. We can't like it's going to have an effect on everything. But what is the real power, particularly right now, of artificial intelligence? I work with teams all day long that are scared to death. They're like, I think AI is going to take my job. Like, I ain't going to have a job next week because AI is going to take it. And it's short sighted to say such a thing because what AI excels at is repetitive menial tasks. And when AI excels at something, it does it better than the human does, which creates a new question. Why was the human doing repetitive menial tasks in the first place? Well, it was because we didn't have a choice and we had to. See, when you look at us from a historical perspective, what did the industrial age do? We all worked outside, we did our things, then the industrial age showed up and it packed us into factories, right? It packed us together. It created the 9 to 5, it created the cubicle, it created both the white collar and the blue collar workforce. And it crammed us together into this work model that, in a sense, has destroyed humanity, right? Like we're all slaves to our work now. We talk about it all day long. We make TV shows about how horrible the work environment is. Like all the things, we have sweatshops. Like it's all a travesty, right? In a weird sense. And it took humans from this space of freedom and interaction and it packed us all together in these places that we talk about like it's been horrible for us. Well, in a sense, AI is coming back to free us from what the industrial age has done. Because when AI now takes over those trivial tasks, those menial tasks, it frees humans up to do things that are uniquely human. The problem is that we just don't remember what it is to actually be human, right? We don't remember what it is to be in direct relationship with people, to gather together and have dinner with friends on a regular basis. And AI frees us up to have productivity and income so that we have more time to interact and to create dopamine from physical contact, from intimacy with other people, with our families, with our friends. Like, so I'm painting a picture for you that AI, we have forgotten what it means to be human. That's where I think we are today, is that as a result of the industrial age and technology, we have lost sight of humanity and what it is and the gift from God that it was in the first place. And now, as much as we're like, AI is going to kill everybody, I disagree. I actually think, no, not that it might not, but that
What you
ain't the
gonna
way
do
we
about
go
it?
down. We got a bunch of ways. It ain't gonna be AI. Yeah, what you gonna do about it? But I actually think that AI offers us an opportunity to become human again, to engage in the things that are uniquely human. I think that what we're going to see over the next 50 years or maybe 20 years, 50 is too long, is a resurgence of human interaction. I think that what's going to become a fad is letting AI do the work in the background, you getting paid, and you spending your time interacting with other people, gathering together, hanging out, going for walks, disconnecting.
That brings up a good point.
I think, yep, I think mastermind groups are going to explode. I think every man, woman, and child is going to be in multiple mastermind groups. So that's my thought. Go for your
Okay,
point.
so if AI is doing all the work and you're reaping the benefits, how does is there a natural check, or do you see an artificial check on, I can't remember, I want to say conglomeration. Is it, I couldn't remember this word the other day, when you buy up companies and you put them all into one. Consolidation. There we
Consolidation.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a natural check on consolidation? Is there a artificial regulatory check on consolidation? Where's that going? Does it just happen that it doesn't matter?
Well, I definitely think it matters. I haven't actually thought about how I see AI as a component of consolidation. Now, like it's one thing to say, "Oh, we have industry consolidation going on." I have been an industry consolidator, so I have seen the good side and the bad side. The good side is that like the business economic variables there are true. They're like there are benefits. The bad side is that like all the things we complained about and the quality of product and things like that, like, oh, it's going to reduce the quality of care or all that, it actually does. I actually believe it does. It doesn't have to, because consolidation has phases too. First consolidation phases are typically really dirty and financially focused. Later generations of consolidation phases end up being like really customer focused, because that's competitive landscape. That's what you have to do. So can't say neither here nor there. But what I will say is like the BlackRocks of the world, like the conglomerates that are gobbling up entire industries, multiple industries, and like sort of monopolizing like massive portions of economies. Yeah, that's a totally different thing. And it looks really dirty under the surface when you start going down the rabbit hole of saying, wait, they own this, and this. They control like all the stuff that we do, and they're buying all the homes so that and ratcheting up the prices of homes, and they win from that, but then we can't own houses. Like, whoa, that's kind of interesting. I think that's kind of, so I think that type of consolidation that's been happening under our noses by like our politicians have let that happen, right? I don't know that it would have happened naturally. It was actually unnatural circumstances and political clout that allowed things like that to occur. That I don't think that was a natural market circumstance. So yeah, it's just kind of an interesting thought there. But I think that AI will play a major role in consolidation. Here's another thought though. Like when we talk about the mom and pop shop, right? The small business, the fabric of America, right? Like when we talk about that, what have we decried? What's the like hell no Walmart on my turf, right? Like that was the battle cry like in Vermont. Like we'll maintain small mom and pop businesses. But like then there's the economics of, but you're charging $15 for eggs and Walmart's charging 5. Like you can't play that game for long before the consumer's like, I need $5 eggs and you can't give them to me, right? Like, who benefits? Well, it's all a very interesting thing. One thing that AI is already doing is it's handing back competitive advantage, or at least the ability to compete, to smaller businesses. So, particularly like right now, AI is just super effective in the world of marketing. Its ability to assess and look at things like, and I was at a conference last year where they actually, marketing, they assess the quality of marketing on like a scale of 0 means like you ain't got nothing, to 100. If you're like at 100, that means nobody in the world markets more effectively than you, right? And right now they're like, industry average is like 25, 30, is like where when you pay for a marketing agency, you get like 25, 30. And what they're seeing happening is that AI is pushing that really fast. And they think in coming years, 80, 80th percentile performance on marketing is going to be what AI will do, and it will be free. You don't, every mom and pop around the world will have access to free marketing knowledge at the 80th percentile. The people that want to go beyond there, that's what you'll pay these big agencies and firms for, and you'll pay up the wazoo to be able to get there. But when you decide, I want to start this business, the AI will be like, well, here's your business plan. Here's the things you don't know. Here's the strategy. And we've already interviewed 7 banks on your behalf. You probably want to go with this one.
So you've
So,
hit several things I want to tie together. The consolidation that we do have that sucks, that tells us that, well, it has made housing unaffordable, for instance, or has helped make housing unaffordable, is from an existing regulatory structure. It's not natural, right? It came about
yeah.
artificially. It also, and this is what was interesting. I don't know if you've listened to David Bahnsen. I'll keep on bringing him up every time we talk otherwise.
Mhm.
But he interviewed a fellow on a podcast of his called The Capitol Record.
Mhm.
And he was the owner or VP something or other for he's a son of the guy that founded it, I think, for one of the largest home builders in America.
Mhm.
And his, his take was that it's actually local regulation, local pushback to housing that is the biggest hurdle for him. And we're doing that to ourselves at the very
I
local
agree.
level. I mean, like, no, you can't build more houses here
I'm
because I want
experiencing it.
nothing to change.
You get it. I get
You
it.
built
I'm
a tiny
experiencing
house
it.
community?
I'm building tiny home communities, and if you understood, our single biggest barrier
Mhm.
is the unincorporated county that we live in. Like,
Mhm.
we're not even in city
Wow.
limits. They're fighting tooth and nail at every corner. They're manipulating the taxes on us to make us
Yeah.
like we're the only people providing affordable housing, right? We're providing affordable housing that people
Mhm.
want. And we can't build our second phase because they won't approve it. They're doing everything they can to prevent it at the municipality level, right? To your point. So he's absolutely right.
It's
So the
Malthusian.
entire housing crisis, yep,
People
the
are bad, we
entire
don't want any more
housing
people here.
crisis, we oh, they want people. They just don't want them to be able to have a good lifestyle. They want people to be like it's the most backwards scenario ever. The housing crisis is our
Oh, yeah.
doing. Like, it's your elected politicians have created the
Mhm.
housing crisis. We could solve it in a heartbeat, right?
Take
But
the gloves off.
that doesn't serve the BlackRocks of the world. And so they own and polish the pockets of all the municipalities, right? Like, it's that
I don't
simple.
even think it takes
So it is
that. I think it takes take them out of it altogether, and a bunch of people are gonna go down to the city council and complain that
NIMBY,
you're building
right?
houses
Not
for
in my
people.
backyard.
It's total NIMBYism. Like, NIMBYism is the greatest
Yep.
threat, in the housing market as far as I can see. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree with you on that. And I'm not also one for unfettered growth, but like it's the scenario that like everything has to be fought, right? It's just this like that there's nobody can even say, I mean, I look at I look at projects where I live now in Salt Lake City that have, since I moved here 5 years ago, people just like every week it's in the newspaper. Oh, another appeal, another fight. Like, it's crazy. And I do think there's a nature of it increasing inside of our partisanship. Like, well, I don't even know why I would support this or not support this, but the political cult that I'm a portion of, like they put their color on it, and so now I don't support this. It's got to be bad. Again, I mean, humans aren't a scourge to the earth. Like, that's actually like a critical concept of belief. Like, should humans be eliminated, which is what the many of the people of the world agree, or do we actually have a massive depopulation risk, which is what the Musks and the Jack Ma's of the world, who I actually tend to agree with what they're doing more so than the people that are saying no, humans are a cancer to the earth, and the better that we could do at eliminating the cancer, the better it would be, right? Like, that's a
Yeah.
really critical decision point,
That's huge.
you know.
And the NIMBYism is
um
actually that's what I was brought up Malthusianism is like the NIMBYism is like a micro Malthusianism, right? Where well, I don't want that land to be affordably I don't want 1,000 more people
right.
within a mile of me or whatever it is. And
Yep. Yeah.
if you take the regulatory structures off, kind of let people do what they want, you're probably going to end up with something that's livable, but we don't have trust in that in the fact that the world is actually built that way in a metaphysical
We know.
manner.
Yeah, we know that there needs to be like some construct, right? We need to have some rules. We have to put rules there for safety about how wide the roads need to be, which infrastructure has to be built. Listen, you're going to have to build a fire department too. There's got to be taxes there because like all those things are logical. And we also know, like, we go to those communities and we're like, I live in a massive master plan community, like with the strictest of the strict HOAs and stuff like that. And you know what? I'm the beneficiary. I've got this wonderful lake to walk around. I've got 60 miles of trails. I've got bike parks. I've got all sorts of stuff. But I have somebody that's like, I saw a chip on your paint. You need to paint that immediately, or else we're like, we're gonna murder you, right? Like, and so it's like but do you know what? I have a choice on whether or not I live here. And I can NIMBY all day long. I can say that, but like, I have a choice, and I can get up and I can move and I can go do something else. And we always have that choice as humans. Well, at least in a free society, we do. Every human being in North America, like, has, or well, say the United States of America, has the ability to get up and
A
move
great deal
at
of
any
it.
point.
Yeah.
And
Freedom is
yeah,
not
and
ability, and
so
the ability is not that hard to get.
no human in history, not your parents, not your grandparents, not Moses, not anybody, lived in a world where they were guaranteed, hey, these are the good old days, and I know you like it. It's going to stay that way forever for the rest of your life. Not a human in history was given that benefit. Not one. Every one of us as humans has gone through cycles of change, some beneficial, some negative, like, but we all died in a society that was different and shifted from the one we were born
Mhm.
into, right? So, like, that's the human experience. NIMBYism is actually our fight against the human experience,
Ooh,
right? Like, so
the
yeah,
universal
yeah,
human
I mean,
experience.
it is kind of the
I
deal,
don't want to
Don't like
die. I
it,
don't want the world
move.
I live in to change, die, to cease to
Yeah,
exist. We
right.
are not actually human
Yeah, I
beings.
mean,
We are humans becoming or human
yeah,
becomings and probably humans becoming. So yeah, which that's ultimately sort of an I want to be God. I want to not change. I
isn't that
want
the
the things
truth?
that I create to not change. I want them to be eternal.
I, I maybe like, no, I have the right that I should be able to say that I don't own that property. Listen, if you don't want me to build on the property, why didn't you buy it? Well, I can't afford it. That's not my
Yeah,
problem. Like, I love you, but just because you don't, like, I hear you, and they're like, well, I don't want you to build there because I've been in this house for 25 years. I'm like, what's really cool? Me building on that property made your property, is your property worth more today than it was 25 years ago? Well, yeah, I've made, 150x on it. Hmm. Can't have that and not have all the other stuff. It's just the way that it goes.
Yep. That is exactly what it is. Did I
Yeah.
did I pull out this book last time we talked?
You haven't busted out any books on me yet.
I've busted it out before. I didn't bust it out on you, I guess.
Super, super abundance.
Yes.
I like
And
that.
if you look at it really closely, you'll see that it is the story of population growth, innovation, and human flourishing on an infinitely bountiful planet.
Hmm.
This was not written
Yep.
by Christians. I think they're both pretty secular people. But they're just going with the numbers. Are they Cato? I think they're Cato Institute guys, which makes sense. Kind of being libertarian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I
Yeah. Seems
introduced
like a good
this.
story. It's in my cart now.
Yeah, I introduced this book to a guy who was a sort of a visiting lecturer, adjunct lecturer at the local university. He read it and he made it mandatory reading, and I think some other guys have too. I don't want to spread that too
Hmm.
far; they might get in trouble. But like, it
Yeah.
makes the case. Uh, and it goes back to that bet in the 1970s over the 10 commodities. Like, what would they do? And yeah, the more people you
Mhm.
have, the cheaper it gets, and the more abundant the resources actually are. So all of the leftist narrative of dystopias because of overpopulation were always garbage. They were absolutely always garbage.
Yes.
So
There is no good model.
let's go back to like the good life, and maybe we can close on this. But if we're given the
Mhm.
choice, ultimately you're like, hey AI, go or you're like, Alexa, give me a new septic tank and put it in,
Yeah.
right? Alexa, fix the Tesla, uh, or whatever the thing is. Then what do we do? What do we choose to do? And how do we guide ourselves in the choices we
Mhm.
make when we have choices to make? More choices than
Mhm.
we've ever had before. That to me is the one of the bigger things that we struggle with already is the fear of missing out. We've got to figure out what the good life is and do it.
Mm. That's right. Again, we have to step back into our humanity. Thank you, AI, for setting us free again. If in fact what AI is doing is it's setting us free, and you know what it's really like, Keith, is it's like the things that we imagine the ultra wealthy always had as like a gift, like, oh, I didn't even know the septic was bad. Somebody just noticed and took care of it for me. I didn't even know I had a septic. I don't even know what a septic is, but it just got done. That's where we're all going. That's the journey that we're all going on as these services are democratized to us. And so to your point, what is the good life? What does it mean again for us to step back into a humanity that we've never known, right? What is that joy? And that's where I invest a lot of my energy. What I recognize is that, like, my days are best when I'm surrounded by people. Like, they're just best when I'm having interactions and like wrapping my arms around humans, kissing my babies, like, um interactions with friends, interactions with people I don't know, interactions uh with 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 people I want to get to know better. Like, that's the human experience, right? The conversations over coffee, like that. And I'm just sitting there like thinking about some of these things from my past week. It's actually typically every week when I call time out, I'm like, oh, that was really cool. Oh, that was really nice. And so I'm learning to step back into humanity, and I'm intentionally defining what my good life is. And I think that's going to be something that we're all called to in the coming years. And the sooner you start, the better and more prepared you're going to be for the journey that you and your children and that your children's children are going to have to go on.
Hmm. So in figuring that out, like there's all the things a lot of things you mentioned they were more like a feast than a fast, if that makes sense. But we can't feast all the time.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yep.
I can't go from party to coffee appointment to roller coaster ride to fishing trip,
Hmm.
et cetera, et cetera. There are people
Yeah.
who have had that ability in their lives, some super rich people.
No, we're
They
designed to
tend to
be
be
productive.
crazy. We're designed to be
We're designed
productive.
to do work.
Mhm.
Yep.
So, so do you have,
Yep.
and this is, have you figured out how to meld those two perfectly?
It's going to look different for every person. Yeah. It's going to look different for every person. We are productivity is inevitably going to move less away from doing and more to thinking and planning. Productivity for many, right? Because we have the ultimate doer now that never gets bored and is so much more accurate and effective than we are. We got the doer in our back pocket now. That's our AI. And except where in an absence of autonomous technology and robots to do all the work, we still got to lift the stuff. So I think what we'll see is a resurgence of blue collar. But in this sense, like doing a good day's work, like physical labor, which you know how good it feels. Like, that felt good. Some calluses and blisters on my hands. Like that was like we were created for that. And then the other type of work is going to be thinking work and thinking about where to apply the things or how we can be better connected. So it's almost like the coming shift in what it means to be productive.
Mm. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. I'm going to think mostly. I'm going to create experiences for humans to be together. Um, I tend to figure out ways to be very productive with my thinking. That's part of my journey as an entrepreneur. I also have figured out ways to be highly unproductive with my thinking. And so I'm going to focus on refining what happens in here so that it's more productive than less, right? But I'm going to balance that with extraordinary amounts of human interaction, doing the one thing that technology can't do the way that I can. And that's like engage and like to be present and to show love for other people and to be loved, and so I'm going to do a lot of that as well, and I'm going to take joy in the physical experience, whether it's walking or running or hiking. Again, our technology can't take joy in creation of earth the way that we can as humans. We were designed to look at this and think it's amazing. The AI doesn't do that. It doesn't look and say, wow, I love these mountains. We do, though. We can look at that and say, wow, the majesty of this rock that's 11,000 feet, and I want to climb it. And so that's the shift of my human experience. A lot of thinking, a lot of being active and enjoying the things that I'm uniquely designed to create, and a lot of interaction with humans.
How do you establish unity in a familial unit?
That's a story for another day. No, unity in a family unit. First, like I'll make it very simple. Um, First, we have to decide what that means. The leadership of the family unit has to decide what how they're going to define unity and what they're trying to create. We have to have a vision for what it is. These principles are no different than any business principle. We have to decide where we are going and what it looks like when we get there. And then we have to have rhythms to install that, rhythms and rituals and habits to install that pathway. And so we want to go there. And then we have to have a march and like milestones and like ways to get that in there. So just like this, like we have to have meeting rhythms. We have to have like, we have to decide when we're going to meet. We have to decide what we're going to talk about. We have to decide how we're going to get together one on one and what things we're going to say. And so that's how you do it in a family unit. That doesn't make it easy, but it is kind of the thing. Who are we becoming? What does it look like when we get there? What behaviors do we reward? Which ones do we like detest, you know? And then how do we meet together? How frequently? How do we meet one on one? How do we adjust course when we don't like what it is? Just simple things like that. Like really just principles of building a business too, right? So that's what I would say. What would you say?
Oh man. Yeah, I think deciding what the good life is. That's the picture, where you're going. And frankly, I mean, this is kind of, we'll talk offline, the specifics. We've been trying to do more of the meetings and so forth. Actually, my wife was saying she was excited about me talking to you again because at least she thinks that, after I talk to you again, she'll have more leverage to press me on exactly when we're having our next quarterly meeting because it's been
Yeah.
7-8 months since we had our last quarterly meeting. So we've got to get
Yeah.
that done.
I used to joke when I did performance reviews that we do annual performance reviews every 2 years, and like it because it was just the reality of what I would acknowledge for you inside of that is that you have to lower the bar. Is that like the issue? Like the real question is what's the actual barrier that's getting in the way? We tend to bite off more than we can chew when we're stepping into rhythms. What's most important is the rhythm and the timing. What's less important is all the details about what's there. It's not a rhythm if it's not happening at a regular interval. So if there isn't a timeout every 90 days, there's not a timeout every 90 days, and you don't have a rhythm, so you have nothing to build on. So we tend to take this big pile and list of stuff, and we say, I have to do this every 90 days. The way I approach it, I said, what if we just do this every 90 days? Right now, my rhythm, I have one this Friday or next Friday, next Friday. Um, it's like in 3 weeks on Friday. And so when we do our rhythm, we just lowered the bar and we said, listen, it's 3 hours. Like all we need is 3 hours digital. You don't have to get anywhere. Just like show up, and like if you can do that, you'll be all right. Like it'll work out okay, you know? So having that little bit of opportunity for timeout is a gift, and it's a great starting spot. And we always want to overcomplicate things. Like that's the other piece. I always overcomplicate it. If it's not on my calendar, honestly, like a year in advance, like I got an opportunity to be. It's really hard. Like my next quarterly actually is on like my wife's birthday, and like we typically go away for my wife's birthday, but I'm like, well, got to do the quarterly. So like we're adjusting the calendar to be able to make it work. And so, yeah, it's, never perfect, but definitely a thing.
Absolutely. Well, it's been real and it's been fun. And
Hmm.
I had my one-on-one with this guy last week. We stopped by the vineyard
Nice.
and we had cheesecake. He
Hmm.
had cheesecake and I had a glass of something. So it's nice to
Yeah.
live a couple miles from a vineyard
Yeah.
that has cheesecake.
I'll take it all day long. Remind me, and if you ever want it, I have a coupon code to like just a little online course that we have. It's free for you if you want it. It's just it's something we made for members in our
Wow.
community that that wanted to kind of build out some of the family architecture.
Nice.
And so they're pretty short videos. It's less than an hour of
Mhm.
content, but some forms and stuff like that that might make it easier. And maybe that could be a starting point for the quarterly too. For you just to sit there and say, hey, let's go meet. We'll talk about a couple things, and then we'll just do a little bit of this vision work,
Yeah.
maybe redefining who we are a little bit.
Can we share
Um,
that?
the other thing,
Can we
huh?
share that?
You could share it with your audience in a non-free version. We could give them like a $50 off or something like that. If that would be something that people wanted, you could share it with any
Totally.
of your friends or anything like that, but like
Let's get a
publicly, like
coupon
just
code.
send people to the website. Yeah, we get you a coupon code if you want one. If you think it's valuable, and if you want to be a part of like what we have coming together, uh, it's the 13th of Friday the 13th of December. So if you want to be on the invite, I can send you an invite from 8 to noon Mountain Standard Time. So if you want in, let me know. I'd love to have you. You would be more than welcome to be a portion of it. It's a bunch of multidisciplinary entrepreneurs, like all just kind of going through the same stuff. It's low touch. Hey, we book it for 4 hours. It's usually right at 4 hours, and you'll have a nice little. I actually recommend doing that before you do quarterly with anybody else. Start with you. This is your time to be Keith and to show up as Keith and to sit there and say what's working and what's not working for me right now. And then I find that then the next step is that you do the quarterly with your partner and your family. And then and then the third step is you do a quarterly with your company. That's kind of the order of operations I power through. Yep.
Gotcha. That's awesome.
Well, I love you, Keith.
I love you,
I love
Eric.
being with you, man.
Thank you for being here today.
Yeah.
And I'll put the same links
Yeah,
that
my
we had
pleasure.
before for getting in contact with Eric, and maybe a coupon code for, getting a hold of that
Cool.
I guess the webinar, some material, get people started. And
Yeah.
and
I'll
when it works out, we'll do it again.
I'll have my VA throw together a quick coupon code, and I'll drop it in there, and yeah, life will be good. All right, my man. I'll catch you soon.
Thanks, bro. If you've enjoyed what you've just heard, please subscribe and share. Also, check out our website and blog, stayatworkhome.com. This episode of the Stay at Work Home is brought to you by heartlandbunkies.com. Come check out our full line of small cabin kits that can be easily assembled by a few friends or family in just a weekend for extra space for meaningful connection, or extra income, or a home office, a homeschool room, or whatever.